Hello and welcome to the Red 78, a Munster podcast for Munster fans. My name is Ruairi O'Hagan. We have a lot to discuss on this week's show as Munster put Glasgow Warriors to the sword at a bitterly cold Musgrave Park. There's the big clash with Bayonne coming up this week and plenty more to discuss as well. And who better to talk us through it all than Munster legends Alan, Quinlan and Fiona Hayes. Guys, how are you?
Great, flying it now.
Quinny?
Very good, Rory. Yeah, very good. Thanks a million. Yeah, all good. Good weekend on the sporting front.
Certainly was. Has your stress levels recovered from that Liverpool game at the weekend?
Yeah. Surely, yeah. Jesus Christ, it's fairly up and down scenario, but they're doing all right. They're doing much better than they were last year, anyway. So, no, it was a good weekend. Started off well on Friday night with the win in Cork. I think. Obviously, we're going to go in depth in that, but it was a good start on Friday.
Fiona, how was your weekend?
Yeah, great. Was coaching most of the weekend, so we were away up in Dublin. We were playing top of the table class with Old Belvedere, so we came away with just about the win 2015. So yeah, so we're top of the table, haven't lost a game yet. One game left for Christmas, so good times.
Almost there. All right, we certainly have plenty to discuss on this week's show and plenty of comments coming into us, Fiona, about that win over Glasgow Warriors. An impressive win from Munster, but certainly not one without its share of criticism as well. But Fiona, the comments coming in, a lot of them referencing Munster's maul defence, which was a big worry.
Yeah, I think a lot of the comments definitely were around the same thing because Quinny was looking for negatives and people straight away could spot that. Look, Tom Lonergan came in with positives. We smashed Glasgow in the first quarter, and another negative of the win was we took the boot off the juggler. Great revenge for last March in Thomond Park nonetheless. And he's looking to the game ahead, and he said we need to be wary of Camille Lopez. He's a wily old fox and will kick penalty points anywhere. And we need to avoid penalties. I think it was 11 penalties at the weekend I think we gave away. But look, Paul Robertson, another guy, was tweeting in, thanks for all the tweets, guys, as well. His main concern would be the maul, and he's referencing Graham Rowntree. He said we can't afford to ship points like that against the top European teams. In particular, we would get hammered. Attacking wise, there's a lot of good there. We will be even more of a threat once Nankivell gets fully up to speed. This is for you. Connor Linehan is telling you, Quinny, we're going all the way again, Quinny. I can smell it, he said.
Jeez, very optimistic this early.
And Tom Keating said negative, the maul, tries conceded from there and the line-up misfired again. And Paddy came in with need a hooker, Quinny. Barron's a good player, but we're in a bit thin on the ground if he's injured. I wouldn't be worried about the maul defence. We'll get it right. Scrum's okay, but if you have a line out in the sport, if you don't have a line out in the sport, you're effed, he said. So yeah. Yeah, I think it's. We were chatting about that as well last week, and it's definitely we need to. I think have we seen, has he trained much? The guy they brought in, I know he's with Jersey Reds. He's an ex-Munster player. Quinny, have you heard anything about him?
No,
in training?
not seen or heard anything yet. I think Niall Scannell is still out. When no real news when he's going to be back. Scott Buckley, I suppose, has been. We are thin on the ground. We spoke about it, so it is an area that's worrying. But they just don't. The depth that you would want is not there at the moment. But they've just got to continue on. Dermot Byrne is really important, obviously, and he's captained the side the last few weeks as well.
Yeah, and just another one, Chris Tobin, attack-wise, we're a huge threat. Our maul defence was woeful. Our line-out is creaking, but make allowances for the young guys in the pack, Ahern, Dogbo, Hodnett, etc. You can't teach experience, but players and coaches need to get up to speed and quick for this big game.
Yeah, certainly lots to get through from those comments. Let's start with the positives, guys, because there were certainly plenty of those in Musgrave Park. Quinny, what was the thing that stood out for you most from a positive point of view from Munster's performance on Friday?
The attack is the obvious one, isn't it? They're pretty ruthless early on. The way the game started, the intensity that they brought, and the skill levels. I think that was probably the most impressive thing. And we were talking and wondering, could they? They showed some really good glimpses in their attack against Leinster the week before. again, the narrative is, well, Leinster were poor, Munster were Munster really good, but Glasgow did make a number of changes. We can't get away from the fact. They made 7 or 8 changes in their team from the team that beat Ulster convincingly the week before. But I think Munster started the game really well, and Glasgow are still a very physical side, really strong forwards, some dangerous players in their backline as well. But I think Munster just focused on themselves, and they, going back to the game last March at Thomond Park where Glasgow were 28-0 up at half time, I think Munster were probably very mindful of that, I'm sure, and very mindful of starting the game well. So they did that brilliantly. It's 26-5 at half time. The one kind of negative in that first half was that first maul try. Shane Daly got the ball in the backfield and had a lot of time. And look, if he does something magical and makes a line break and goes up along that touch line and Munster score out of it, yes, it's the right decision. But I just think, again, it's a little bit of a learning curve, managing the tempo of the game, managing the scoreboard, and just making good decisions when you're in a good position. So really good, the attack. I think it was superb. Their breakdown was really good as well. The cleanouts were superb, and I think that was the pleasing part, to see that they continued on and they grew in confidence from the Leinster game the week before. And that's an area that we now look at Munster with confidence, that we have ability to move the ball, get in good shape. The pods are working really well together, and I think that's something that obviously needs to improve a lot going forward. So really good start. Dermot Barnes' try, sensational try.
Fiona, what pleased you the most about Munster's, I suppose, attack?
Yeah, similar. It was just the speed Casey brought, and that all, as Quinny said, that's all got to do with the barreling and the breakdown and those clean outs and how they were able to move the ball so quickly. I don't think Glasgow knew what hit them from the off. Munster came out firing, and things just seemed to click. There was, the combinations were brilliant to watch. We'll speak about it later, but that Hodnett and Coombs, young back row as well, Hodnett, Coombs and Tom Ahern, and they seem to be clicking. And it's not just, they're doing their work in defence and they're doing their work in the breakdown, but it's their connection with the outside backs, getting Nankivell, Shane Daly, they seem to be popping up everywhere. And we know, obviously, Munster play that 1-3-3-1 system, and to have someone of Tom Ahern's height out in that channel, I think we might be seeing a few more crossfield kicks going to plan, because 6'9" of him, he's a nice target to be aiming at. And look, I know Crowley had advantage, but it was just beautiful rugby to watch it. Obviously we spoke about, I think there was a tweet come in as well, someone spoke about how cold it was there and dropping a chip down someone's back at some stage, and some guy didn't even feel it. But I think it just, if you're in that crowd, the style of rugby that you're watching was so exciting, edge of the seat stuff, and that's what people want. You want to be watching that attack flowing, and it was brilliant at times.
Yeah,
I just add to that, Rory. I think for Munster to be successful and win matches, they've got to come out and be physical. I think they can't rely on just X factor players and individual brilliance for somebody to do something special and strike every 10 or 15 minutes. They've got it's a kind of relentless kind of game that we know they're talking about, the way they train with pace and tempo, but they've got to be really physical. And I'm not saying that there's not special players in the team. There's loads of really top quality players, but they've got to work as a unit. And I think that's the most pleasing for me now. There looks like there's a nice bit of cohesion in the team. There was a couple of changes. Nankivell was really good coming back in the centre. Himself and Frisch look really dangerous, I think. So, overall, I think the start of the game, setting the tone. Obviously, when you play well like that at home, and they've shown it this year in the home games, you've got to go to the next level. You've got to do that away from home, and you've got to bring a consistency. And I know it's going to be a very, very busy period, the next 7 or 8 weeks, right up to the end of January. A lot of really important matches, but that's the challenge. Keep that going. And I always say in sport, in life as well, you try and really acknowledge your strengths, and that's a real strength for Munster, that attack and that flow of their game. You have to kind of obviously address the weaknesses, which are the maul, and we'll get into that a little bit better. But I just love the way they started the game, and they were quite physical and really intent in what they were doing, winning a lot of dominant collisions, and that's the tone that they have to keep bringing if they can, you know.
Yeah, certainly. So, Tom Ahern, let's get back to him, Fiona, because when he was named at 6, did that raise an eyebrow for you, and how happy were you with his performance at 6?
Yeah, look, I think the first game I was a little bit shocked, and I probably, in my own head, I put it down to maybe Tyburn not playing back row got to do with the scrum issues that they'd moved him into. They wanted Tom Ahern on the pitch and Tyburn in the second row to help out those props. But God, he's proved me wrong. I always thought he was an excellent second row, and not as physical as I would have thought, but what he's brought to the last couple of performances has been huge. It started out obviously with a very physical game against Leinster. You know, he's looking at Joe McCarthy, who's probably snuck ahead of him in the eyes, I suppose, of Ireland coaches, and he was, you know, up in those couple Irish camps. But I thought he just offered so much at back row, as I spoke about his height. You know, we've been talking about the physical and the height of Ryan Baird and in the past, and how physical he is, and he's an athletic and he's brilliant around the pitch. But I think Tom Ahern is really after coming into the frame as a potential six filler for Peter O'Mahony. He's, you know, what was brilliant as well is his ability to square up, you know, to release the players. We saw him. This is not very often you see a second row and a back row looking so calm on that side of the pitch when they have loads of space. We normally expect him to put the head down and just carry, but his beautiful hands, he was able to fix a defender, and I think it was pushed Daly away on the outside, and he's just been excellent in the last couple of games. And as I said, it's his ability to interlink with the backs as well as the physical nature, and what he can offer defensively and offensively in the line out is brilliant as well. So if you can have your back rows as tall as your second rows, you've got a lot more options in there.
Yeah, Quinny, the Irish Times had an article during the week saying that he could be the long-term successor to Peter O'Mahony at 6. I know we're probably getting a bit giddy on the Tom Ahern hype early in the season, but is that a long-term view that he could be Peter's replacement?
Yeah, it's a possibility. I think he's a really top quality athlete. I think he needs to get better at certain areas of his game, probably the physical collisions and the aggressive nature that's required to play as second row, back row. His undoubted qualities and strengths are his ball carrying ability, his athleticism, line out potential to win and steal opposition ball as well. So we haven't seen a lot of Thomas Ahern the last few years. There's been lots of injuries. His body's kind of broken down a little bit at times. I think he's had kind of muscle strains and tears and stuff like that. It's part and parcel of it. I'd loads of injuries myself. It's not a slight on him. I think he's developing and growing physically. I hope he doesn't grow any taller and I don't think he will at this stage. He's 6'8", but yeah, he's a really athletic quality player who in his underage career was a full back. So having him in those wider channels will definitely offer you more variety, a potency to do crossfield kicks, and even get his hands on the ball, because he's a really quick, fast, athletic runner with the ball. And yeah, so very impressive, and he's done really well. But look, I wouldn't get too carried away. Playing in the back row, going into Europe is another step up. And you know, the business end of the season, I'm just really pleased for him at the moment, and I don't think we should look too far ahead. Munster have a lot of good back rows. Ruan Quinn, Brian Gleeson we're very excited about those young players coming through. So, you know, a number of players can play in that sixth position, but to see him there in the last 2 weeks doing really well was certainly very pleasing.
Yeah, so plenty of positives to take from that performance on Friday night. But I suppose the main negative, we've touched on already, all the comments are talking about it, is that maul defence. Fiona Hayes, with your coaching hat on, what went wrong for Munster in that maul defence on Friday night?
Quinny will agree with me in this. I think everything was just slow to set. I think when they knew Glasgow were mauling, they were just slow in getting into the height that they needed to get in. They were very passive, so it was almost Glasgow were coming at them. One of the biggest things that disappointed me was that I think it was the first try. It was a throw to the back, and it was just too easy. It was a simple throw to the back. Munster didn't compete, so we didn't even go up in the air, and there was no one in that back channel that hit it like a train, and the maul simply just shifted off to the left hand side, and it was over in a matter of seconds. So that's far too easy. I know it's harder to defend them all at the back of the line out, but it was just too simple. And I think Casey, they'd obviously switched him into stand in the line closer to the line, but they needed to get someone, a big ball player that was going to hit that maul when it was coming at him, because we know Glasgow are going to 5 meters out. If you don't compete in a line out, you need to be set up, you need to be hitting them a lot quicker. And it's something I think with Munster as well, they seem to look, I know I've done a little bit with coaching with Tommy O'Donnell and how the women would be training a lot similarly. They're trying to enforce the systems in how you defend or how we attack. Like, we're trying to get similar things between all the age grade squads. And I know with that line out that they kind of like to get in early and set. And I definitely didn't see that. I just thought it was too slow, and they really struggled when there was a shift of weight, either upright or up left. We couldn't deal with that power coming through.
Yeah, Graham Roundtree said afterwards that the win was tainted, Quinny, because of the concession of those maul tries. What did you see when you were looking at the mauls, and how did Munster improve it heading into Saturday?
Well, they just need to obviously sit down as a group of forwards. I think Andy Kyriakou is he'd probably be most frustrated, because he's the one tasked with the job of getting the forwards right. It was really disappointing. I think there was three maul tries, a penalty try from one that was going towards the line as well, and then another one that was stopped just short. And then Rory Darch, the Glasgow number 7, who was really prominent throughout the game. I thought he had a brilliant game, and he's side under a lot of pressure at times. He picked and went, and it's probably the one frustrating part for Thomas Ahern before he came off. He missed that tackle, and that's what I'm talking about. Just they're the little fundamentals, that the nitty gritty stuff in tight, the one-on-one battles. You've got to win them, or at least get parity. So it wasn't no the lack of trying from Thomas Ahern. Technically he was a tiny bit slow and a little bit passive in trying to smash him. But when you concede 5 tries, and they're all directly from mauls, very concerning. It's not in Munster's DNA, is it? And if you were to tell anyone afterwards who didn't see the game that Munster conceded 5 tries and they all came from the mauls, and they won they scored 6 themselves, won 40 points to 29, they'd say, Jesus, that's crazy. That's not something you'd associate with Munster. Not something we normally associate with Glasgow either. Every team is trying to work on their maul for sure. But they just sensed a vulnerability there from the Munster pack, and they capitalised and they kept going for it. Now, you can always argue and say, well, some of the penalties and some of the entry points into the 22 and close to Munster's line were poor. Discipline needs to be better, blah, 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 blah. But, you just have to be more aggressive there and cohesive. They're going on 1s and 2s. The first point of contact there's very little aggression there. It's passive. They're kind of binding up 2 players where the ball is thrown, and they're kind of driving into it as if to probably in third gear, I'd say. You need, for me, with a maul, and I stand to be corrected here, I think the first person who engages with the opposition in a maul time, they've got to go balls out, 100% aggressive. If they get a twist or a turn or a creak in the maul, the next guy has to come in really quickly with loads of energy as well. So you have 2 guys who are really fighting and being really an absolute nuisance. And then obviously you get a pivot point right in the centre where you have resistance, that maul is not going forward. And then you make it messy and you lock up as quickly as you can. So from all the 5 attack mauls that they had, what I can see very evidently is Munster players are going in 2s and 3s and 1s, and they're very much isolated, and the levels of aggression are not where they need to be. I'm not saying you have to go in swinging punches or grabbing people around the head or doing anything stupid. I just mean Look, you're never going to split up a maul every time straight away, but that should be your goal. How do we stop this from getting great body position from the opposition? How do we stop them from getting really set? Because the hardest part about a maul is when the opposition gets set and that ball is transferred back to the back of the maul. That's when they're technically on the front foot. Then you have to have that 6 or 7 forwards really. It's like a scrum situation that they just have to really hold that pressure that's coming forward. And obviously, if you hold it for a couple of seconds, usually the referee says use it. It creeps forward and someone busts through the middle or they get a hand around someone, it forced the scrum half to play. But at no point really the other night, and the one for the penalty try, we were legal. We were flying around the sides and coming in at different angles.